Hello, and welcome to The Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and The Kosh is a podcast that spotlights people who've had an association with Oshkosh and the surrounding Fox Cities area. And I would like to also mention that this episode of The Kosh is sponsored by Sturgeon Spirits Craft Distillery, The Kosh's newest tradition. Kosh listeners, how are we doing this morning? It is the morning after snowpocalypse. That's what I'm going to call it for right now. It has been quite the morning. You know how that goes. You get dumped on. The wind swirls it all around. And then you got to go out there 3 or 4 times. Even though maybe it didn't snow 3 or 4 times, but the wind said, I'm just going to take the snow you just moved. I'm going to move it back because that's what I want to do. And it has been that morning. But I'm not going to actually complain about it because, you know, as much as I do complain about like snow being a 4-letter word and not my favorite thing, what I will say is that I enjoy pulling out my snowblower. And if you are a regular Kosh listener, you know that in a past episode I talked about the camaraderie of snowblowers. When it's time to get out there and everybody's out there at the same time with their snowblower, and it's kind of like we look at each other and through our ski goggles and all the other snowmobile suits and whatnot, and we're basically giving virtual high fives to each other down the street and across the street as we snowblow with our big machines. And we're super happy that we get to pull these beasts out. And that's where you get your neighbor who's more than willing to go do a couple of houses back and forth from their own house because they're like, well, I got the big joker out now. I'm going to handle my business. And I am that dude too. So, and we're going to talk more about this when we get to what in the world is going on with, because my what in the world is going on with totally has to do with what happened to me this snowy morning. But that's not really what the Kosh is about. What the Kosh is really about is, and you know what I'm going to say. You already know what I'm saying. The Kosh is about these amazing, amazing guests that I get to have all the time, and this week is no different. I am I can't even tell you how excited I am about this guest, and you'll understand why when we introduce. And this here is going to be a fun conversation. But without further ado, this week's guest is Karl Loewenstein. Did I get that right?
Yep, perfect.
Hey, you're one of very few.
Well, you're one of very few too.
Facts. Yeah, bruh. Yeah, I will. This is very, very true. Karl, how are we doing this morning?
I am doing great.
Okay. How do you feel about this weather thing?
You know, I was actually a little disappointed. I was expecting a blizzard, and it didn't blow the snow around hard enough. I went out walking last night, actually, and 10 o'clock last night just to walk around the neighborhood. Had a police officer yell at me for walking in the street. There's no cars, but, you know, and then I had to push someone out of the ditch. It was great. I love it.
Oh, you're that guy. Oh, my God. Bro. There's no way in the world I'd have been out there last night.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad. But see, you know, like me, I think the snowblowers, man, it's always like a competition on my block.
Yeah.
Like who gets out there early enough? It's like, damn, it's 7 a.m. Brian's already out there snowblowing. He's gonna get this whole side done.
Oh, not the competition. See, I don't feel like my neighbors are the competitive types with the snowblower.
He's gonna blow my driveway if I don't hurry up and get out there.
There's courage. I just feel like there's snowblower courtesy that happens, and there's understanding, right? But when you pull your big snowblower out, like people aren't like, there's definitely a camaraderie about it. Like we're all in this together.
Oh yeah.
And no one cares about who you are. They just want to tackle the snow.
Just get out and enjoy the morning on a morning like this.
Facts.
Meet your neighbors, chat a little bit, blow some snow. Yeah. Enjoy the sunshine. Yeah. Can't go wrong. See, how can it be a 4-letter word with this kind of spirit?
Oh, it's easy. It can still be a 4-letter word. Karl, you know what else, Karl, I'm going to have to say is I do believe that you are the first Kosh guest that has ever walked here. That's a first.
It's not far away, so it's less than a mile. It's, it's a good day for that. So I'm, like I said, I'd love to be out. And it was a little windy for me before, but right now it's been a great morning.
Did most people, were most people on the walk? Were they already out there, or was everybody still out there snowblowing?
No, I think there's just a lot of people shoveling, a lot of snow blowing. Not too many people out just getting around. People walking their dogs.
Oh, facts.
Yes, that gets people out.
Yes, I had to take Bosco, the podcast dog. For whatever reason, his little self thinks he is like a husky. He believes that he should be jumping in snowbanks and rolling around, and I'm just like, nah, man.
I feel the same way. I'm just too old for that.
Too old for that. Fair enough. All right. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
All right, Karl. Can you please share a little something about yourself and your connection to the Kosh and the surrounding Fox Cities area?
Well, I obviously, as you introduced me, I'm the owner and founder of Sturgeon Spirits. So we have the first craft distillery here in Oshkosh, and we are going on about 11 months of existence. We're having our our first anniversary celebration with the opening of Sturgeon Spearing this year. And so that's been a very exciting year for me. It was in the works for several years before that. I was a moonshiner before that, and I don't know how much you know about it, but it is a violation of both federal and state law to make your own spirits. You can make your own beer, you can make your own wine, but the minute you have a moonshine still, it's a federal crime. So don't tell anybody that I was breaking the law for a lot of years, but I just was doing that in my garage. And then I decided a few years ago that it was time for a transition in my life. We could talk about the university. I have them on my list a little bit later. But I was looking for a new direction. And the other thing I always say about my life is that I was a professor of history. And in fact, I taught Russian history for a long time, but there aren't a lot of other job opportunities as a Russian historian, and so I made my own new career path by taking my hobby and turning it into a small local business. And so I have been incredibly pleased and excited with the operation. I've learned so much. I'm being challenged every day. It is an amazing experience.
Bruh.
And this is an amazing community, and I'm part of the reason that I'm happy and a bit intimidated to be sitting here with you is the great people that you present on your show and the really cool community that Oshkosh is. So so that's a little bit about me. I'll talk more. I'm sure I'll talk more about me as we go, but.
Oh no, that's the facts. And I guess I just want to put out there right now that Sturgeon Spirits is definitely my new church. I have no problem stating that to the Kosh listeners, and we will be bringing this up throughout this episode. But Russian history?
So it's a Cold War story in a way, right? I was thinking about this because I figured you might ask, or I'd wanted to talk about it, is I had an amazing high school teacher that really first inspired me. Her name was Miss Hess. I actually went back after high school many years when I was in college and even afterwards, and when we would visit her in the summers when I was home again. She was fascinated by the country. She just inspired my interest. You know, she had a master's degree in history and was just so excited and so interested in it that it caught my attention then. I had to write a research paper. You do this as, sophomore in high school. When I was a kid and in my English class, I wrote a paper about Leon Trotsky, who was one of the founders of the Soviet Union, as a 14-year-old. And I'm like, that's weird. That's weird, right? I mean, who in their right mind is writing about some obscure Russian revolutionary, in the mid-'80s in a small town in Iowa, right? And so, but that was sort of the beginning of my path into Russian history. I went off to college. I actually majored in something called Russian civilization, so I could start taking the language. So I learned Russian and then the history when I was in college. I was fortunate enough to spend a semester abroad.
Do you still speak Russian?
Конечно, я говорю по-русски.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes, I mean I do, and I've done it for a long time, and so I haven't gotten over there in a while. But I took Russian, and so when I was a junior in college, I did a study abroad in the Soviet Union. So I spent a semester in inside of the old evil empire. It was really amazing and a cool experience in 1990, right before everything ended over there. And I was fascinated, and that trip abroad kind of said, this is what I want to keep studying. This is what I'm interested in. I want to keep traveling. I want to be part of this experience. And the way you really do that is, I looked at the Foreign Service. I looked at, should I get a job with a consulting firm that does international consulting with Russia? But I ended up just staying in school and reading books and learning all about Russia. So
that sounds like the story of many a professor. No. That's how you end up with the PhD, and then you end up teaching because you're in school. You love the subject matter so much. You continue to read a lot of books about it, and then
that's right. You just keep doing it. And I love to travel, and I love to go there. I've probably spent a total of 2 years of my life in Russia and the Soviet Union over the course of my life, and it would be more except for the political circumstance. Right? Putin is he's anti-history. Right? He doesn't want to talk about the realities of the history of his own country.
Bruh.
And that means he's made it very difficult for people who want to do historical research to travel there, to work in the archives, to see the old documents, to interview people, to understand what happened in the past. No longer.
What is one of the biggest myths or misconceptions that we have about Russia or Russians?
Well, I would say that the thing that always struck me that I wouldn't have realized is how wonderful the individuals are, and how the culture of people on an individual basis is warm and welcoming. But this really oppressive political system that they've always lived with has kind of destroyed public life and turned people inward. So once you make a Russian as a friend, you are part of their life, right? You're in their house, you're in their apartment, you're eating with them, they're inviting you over, you're connected to their friends. And this is a very close, intimate world in terms of how you survive in a world that's got this really repressive political world. And I didn't really know that about Russia before. And I mean, true of the Soviet Union. And, I have to say in the modern age, right, I focused on Russian language, right? And the Soviet Union was an empire, and we're in the midst of, a war. And so there's lots of different ethnic groups and languages. And so the people I primarily got to know were Russians because I spent my time in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So I don't want to overgeneralize for, say, Soviets in general, but we do want to remember that the Russians are a very particular group, and unfortunately sort of an oppressive group inside the old empire. But it is fascinating. So I was always struck by the warmth. If I come back to where I started, the warmth of the Russians as individuals in a system that sort of encouraged isolation and and no public activity and conduct.
Now, you're not originally from like the Fox Valley region or anything, right? I do believe you said you're from Iowa.
Yep.
How'd you get here?
So it's a convoluted route, but it's related obviously to Russia, because I grew up in not a terribly small town, Davenport, Iowa, about 100,000 people, right on the banks of the Mississippi River. And I wanted more than anything in my entire life to get the heck out of the Midwest and get the heck out of Iowa.
Bruh.
That's a familiar story.
Right. And so I went to college in Chicago, where I did my Russian civilization. And then I went on to graduate school, because that's what you do, right? If you want to keep studying a topic. I moved to North Carolina. I went to Duke, where I got my PhD. And then I bounced around, was in New Jersey for a while, was in New York State for a while. For about a decade, I was out of the Midwest. And then a job came open at UW-Oshkosh, and they offered me the job. And so I moved back here with my family. And we have been here since 2001. Here in Oshkosh. And I've really, as much as I thought I wanted to be out of the Midwest, and I sometimes say, oh, man, I'd really like to, move back to a big city. I'm very happy with the world that we have here in Oshkosh. And Oshkosh is a great town with so many good things that have made a great life for my family, my kids, myself.
No, I totally get that. And I couldn't agree with you more.
And Wisconsin's too. Wisconsin's not Iowa, so I feel like at least I'm in a different state.
Facts. I don't know. I do have some love for Iowa. Like the thing we used to do an annual trip there to go to the dog tracks. I'm so sad that they have closed all the dog tracks down. People, please don't be mad at me because I enjoy dog racing, but I do, and it's so good. Like I'm not a big gambler. I'm a person that like I want to play bingo instead of pull a slot, and I like the dog races because I want entertainment value with my gambling, so to say, and they're just intriguing watching the dogs run this track and the things that happen. So that I used to really, really enjoy that.
Oh, fascinating. No, we used to come to Wisconsin for vacation. I really called it God's country, right? We're going to leave boring Iowa and go and, go canoeing and go camping and spend our time up here. So I spent a lot of time visiting Wisconsin, particularly as a Boy Scout. But so I always had a good idea. My mom actually ended up, my mom went to Madison. I don't think she graduated from Madison. So we're all connected. The Midwest is all connected, and it's all good folks.
We're at least cousins. We do know that. Like Minnesota and Michigan, we're really not all that different. At least the more people that I meet from these regions, the more alike we seem.
Well, I shouldn't even tell you though. My other side of my family is all from Illinois, so. I know what Wisconsinites think about that.
Oh well, not me. I don't have nothing against it. I'm not that hardcore. And let's be honest. Most of that conflict has to do with driving and football.
Fair enough.
Which neither I like. I don't like to drive, and I don't like football that much. Not like that anyway.
Right.
All right.
Don't let those rivalries.
No, not at all. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing?
Well, I think that this is always a dilemma, as I sort of alluded to earlier, is that I have been looking for a way out of the university for quite a while, and that's mostly, it has to do with changes at the university, but also just me sort of having run the course of a career and having these changes in Russia where I couldn't do parts of my job that I liked. And so I've been looking for a way out. And one of the things so I was in an entrepreneurial spirit in a way, like what can I do to create a new path for myself? And one of the things that actually we could talk about as well is I've been really engaged in education here in Oshkosh for a lot of years. I served on the school board here from 2010 to 2013, and so I got deeply involved with public education. A very good friend of mine, Kim Newen, and I ran the referenda Vote Yes campaigns for Oak Lawn and then the last referenda, and so we've been very involved in promoting the public schools here in Oshkosh. And so I was like, maybe I want to start a consulting firm. Could I help other districts? Could I help other people with the lessons that we learned about how you build community support for schools? Because we felt very successful and very proud of our community in that we have done so well in passing the referendum first for Oak Lawn, then we passed the referendum for an operational funding to make sure that we kept art and music and football and all these really important things. And then we did it again for all this really good new construction and new buildings that will make the Oshkosh School District better and stronger.
I never understand the people that fight school district improvements. I just don't understand it. It's, I don't know, and I don't want to be insulting, but I'm going to just say it. And I feel like it's small-minded. Like you don't get like that. One of the biggest business considerations is your school district and what does it offer and how good it is. When a company thinks about moving into a region, they're looking at how good that school district is because that's how they attract talent. And you can't cheap out on it. For all the investment you put into your schools, I feel like what you get back in that investment is invaluable. And sometimes I just don't understand the pushback on the investment in our youth in our school system.
And I think we made the case, right? And part of what it makes me proud of this community is every referenda that we put forward would be passed by a really nice, significant. Oaklawn went 65% yes. Even the operational referendum went something like almost 60% yes. And so we worked very hard to be positive and say, look, this is about the kind of community you want, where you want to live. And we don't want it to be political. We want it to be about being proud of the place where you live.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you're going to vote for. And national politics invades so much into our everyday local lives. Vote for whoever you want for president, but make sure you have good schools in your community, because that's what makes your community strong.
What's one of the big lessons you learned?
Oh, from the referenda, I would say that just to be positive, right? And to stay, I think, really nonpartisan, to make the case for public school and community. Because one of the things we noted in the end of the referenda, that the most conservative places in Oshkosh that I would have considered conservative, more affluent, vote for more conservative candidates, so they were overwhelmingly and sometimes more in favor of the referenda than different parts of town, which I didn't expect it. I mean, I'm incredibly gratified it turned out that way. And so people who are voting one way on the national level or even on the state level are then turning around and saying yes to their public schools. And that is incredibly gratifying, and it says something good about the community.
Yes.
It makes me very happy. And so what we learned is don't do politics, right? Do community. And that's how you win referenda, and that's how you make the case. And the people who want to do politics just end up, angry and upset. You do community, and good things come of it.
Facts.
And so that's one of the things that I love about Oshkosh. We have done so well, for so many years, and made this a very positive community.
I love the changes that are happening. I'm over the moon about the leadership in place. I do think there's so many good things happening there. I think the school district is meeting our transformational community where they're at and where they're going to become.
Absolutely. I mean, we can always get better, and those are the things that we can push and we can work on together.
Absolutely.
And I think I had that on one of my pet peeves. We'll talk about that later, right? But but I think there's so much to what's wrong with politics in that we can really figure things out together if we're open to finding a solution and compromise and doing those things together.
Together being the key word.
And so many people will close the door before they even get to that point. And that local politics in Oshkosh has been a place where we can disagree, but we can compromise. And that's a powerful thing, and that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yes, it is. Agreed. Okay. You ready to jump into the first segment?
Oh, I guess that was it, right? Was that a full answer to my
well, no.
I was a little sort of off tracks. But anyway, education has always been my passion, and that was, in some ways, the distillery is about that too. I mean, one of the great things about distilling is history and education. And as you know, you come in and see me, I'll more likely to tell you a story about, taxes in 1792, if that's what you want to talk about, as opposed to how you make a whiskey or, talk sturgeon history or whatever. I mean, so much of distilling is history, and I want it to be a place where we can talk about cool things and the reasons things work the way they do, and they're embedded in history. And so that's an educational component to what I'm doing. I make spirits in order to create a space where we can all learn together.
Well, Karl, for sure, I'm going to tell you right now, every time I come to church, I'm definitely learning something, and I always have a question, like, why do you got that ghost pepper vodka up there? Because that there don't seem right. That seems very wrong.
You got to take the spice, man. Go for the heat.
But you know what? Every time I got to try it. If you don't know, come find out with us at Sturgeon Spirits.
That's right.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other things you want to share before we move into the first segment?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Don't worry. We've got time.
Oh, we do.
Yes. All right. First segment is called What in the World is Going On With? This is your opportunity to tell us what's on your mind. You start with the phrase what in the world, and then you tell us what's on your mind.
So I was just saying that as this weekend approached, what in the world's going on with the lake? As somebody who's just passionate about the sturgeon spearing season, this crazy warm weather. I'm hopeful. Right here I am going, it's going to be freezing cold this week. Thank goodness, finally, we're going to get a frozen lake where we can enjoy one of the great things about Oshkosh. And I love it when that lake's frozen.
Are you that person? Are you out there?
I don't fish, so I'm not a fish, but I love to go out there. I actually cross-country ski on the lake. I go for hikes on the lake. When my kids were little, I would make a skating rink on the ice. I love the frozen lake, and I need my frozen lake to sort of make the winter complete. And the nature is not cooperating, but hopefully this week.
I'm gonna tell you right now that as a big shout out to my brother-in-law Chris Weiss. There's the ice fishermen were upset this year. They were like, "Come on now, it's not even safe enough for me to walk out there." You got grandchildren who are upset that they can't go fishing with grandpa. Like, this is serious business out here. So
yeah, it's something that's. I mean, one of those things. I knew nothing about Oshkosh before I came here, and you're like, This is freaking amazing and unique and spectacular that you can have 30 miles of ice that you can just drive on, walk on, ski on. Where else in the world is there something that crazy?
Facts. And I'm going to go with the crazy because you're not going to catch timber on it. I'm gonna leave it to the professionals. That's what I'm going to say.
You got to get out there, man.
I feel about, as I've gotten older, how I feel about ice fishing is more like about camping. If you've got the ice shanty that's basically a mansion, I might come. I don't want to be out there just doing the small. No, I want the full blown shanty. Give me a TV and some internet
and a bottle of Sturgeon spirits.
Ooh, definitely, I'll show up for that. Facts. All right. Yes, I love that. Maybe we should make that a thing. Like, if you're gonna ice fish with Sturgeon spirits.
That's right. Absolutely. I love it.
All right. That sounds like a T-shirt, Carl. Get a T-shirt. All right. What in the world is going on with my neighbor going to wash his clothes after snowpocalypse with his front-wheel drive car and not snow blowing out his driveway.
Bruh.
Now, that sounds, maybe it doesn't sound as bad as what it is, but okay. So I'm out there doing the thing that to do. You get your snowblower out. I'm doing my high fives and my points at all my neighbors out with their snowblowers. And my neighbor, a house down from us, is pulling out the driveway. Now, they have not plowed. It's not theirs. They're renters. So they're pulling out, and he gets stuck. Gets stuck before he gets out the driveway, right? And so, I watched for a minute, and he was stuck. His wheels were just spinning, right? And I was like, all right, can't leave my man out there. That's not very Wisconsin. So I go over there. I'm like, hey, you good? Can I help? Can I push your car? He's like, man, I don't know. And I was like, all right, no problem. I'm going to give a push. All right, so I get in front of the car, try to push the car into the street. He's in the car spinning. Not happening. So that happens next. My neighbor sees me, and he comes because what you do. It's that time of the year, right? You see one neighbor pushing a car, another neighbor's going to show up to help push a car too. Big shout out to my man Mike out there. So Mike comes over. We both get in the front of the car. We're pushing the car. Car's spinning, not going anywhere. And at this point, there's a bunch of snow that's gotten under the car, right? Mm-hmm. And there's quite a few inches out there from this. So then we try to do the things that they tell you to do when you get stuck, right? And they're like, put a piece of cardboard under. So I'm like, hey, do you got a piece of cardboard? He's like, oh, my cardboard is all soaked already. I was like, well, soaked cardboard sure isn't going to help anything, right? But I was like, you got a piece of carpet? He's like, I got carpet. I was like, go get your carpet. So he gets the carpet, we put the carpet under the wheels. Guess what happens? Still spinning, nothing happens. That's what happens, right? So here's the thing. I didn't know the backstory because my assumption is if you are pulling out of your driveway at this time in the morning and you're going somewhere after snowpocalypse and the plowing really hasn't happened yet, right? You must have to go to work. What I've learned about this is my man, two significant things that changed my whole way that I felt about this whole thing, right? Because before I was just a neighbor helping. Number one, He's fresh from California. He just got here. And so he's telling me, yeah, man, just got here from California. Haven't been here this long. This is really my first snow. Yeah, I didn't really know what to do with this. I was just trying to leave to go wash my clothes. It was almost like a record scratch, like, because I was just like, nah, man, you don't go out after snowpocalypse to go wash your clothes on a Sunday or a Saturday morning, because there's not even good plowing yet, and your driveway isn't done, and you were bound to get stuck with a front-wheel drive car.
Shovel first.
But apparently they don't teach you that in Cali. Nonetheless, and I'm not trying to badmouth my man, because you only know what you know, and I felt bad for my guy, right? So nonetheless, long story short, what ended up happening was the most Wisconsin thing that can ever happen. My neighbor with the truck came over and pulled him out. That's what happened. We had to put the strap on him and pull him out the driveway and get him going. But we did have to have some talks about what you do and you don't do in Wisconsin. And number one was, after snowpocalypse, don't get in your front-wheel drive car in your unplowed driveway and go try to wash clothes. That's just an automatic no. All right. Number two, don't go out messing with snowpocalypse without gloves on. Now, my man didn't have gloves on, and he's killing me. Now, I got these Eskimo mitts on. These things were humongous, 4-layered kind of mittens and things, and I'm looking at him messing around with no gloves on, and his hands were no longer purple. They were something else. They were burgundy. And I'm just thinking to myself, bro, do you need some gloves?
California, you might not have gloves.
No, well, he at least had winter boots. He had winter boots, so he did enough to know that much, right? Nonetheless, all wells that ends well. He did get out. I did see someone come over with a snowblower and start doing the front of the driveway. I don't know if he left to go wash his clothes or not, but I did warn him, keep an eye out for the parking lot of wherever he's going to wash his clothes, because if that's not plowed, you might not want to pull into there, right?
Good advice.
Hey, just trying to help my fellow brothermen out. All right. So that is my what in the world is going on with. I feel like there should be snow courses for people coming from places to live in Wisconsin who've never experienced snow. Like there should be like some type of maybe a snow license, like get a driver's license. Like there's some things we need to teach you about snow.
We have civics in school. Maybe we need the snow
version of it.
Version of civics. That's right.
Yeah,
Wisconsin snow ethics.
Wisconsin snow ethics. We might be onto something here.
That's right.
Yeah. It just and I mean, because we take it for granted. I take it for granted because I've lived with snow my whole life. So it's just things we automatically know. But if you're coming here from a place that don't snow, I could see where a lot of bad mistakes could happen.
But you are cutting people a lot of slack, because the first snow every year, it seems like half the Wisconsinites have forgotten how to drive.
Oh yeah, that's true. We don't act right.
You just got to get it, but you got to get used to it. You need a little practice.
Oh no, I feel like the first snow of the year, we all act like Illinois drivers. Oh, zing! No,
bruh.
All right. Okay, ready for the next segment?
I'm ready.
Next segment is called 21 Questions. 21 Questions is not 21 questions, but these are really in-depth questions, and maybe they'll create 21 answers. The first question is, what are you grateful for?
So I love this question, and I went in I was thinking about this question, and I went in a really different direction, because one of the things that I have come to realize in my old age is how lucky I am to be here as an American in the 21st century, to think about how our lives have been shaped by the world that's come before us. I mean, I'm a historian. I think a lot about history, but I think that we often forget how special this moment in history for us. And so I count it as luck, right? We happen to be born at a moment where things are the way they are. And so we need to say that in the end, right, you can be the things that happen in our lives, we can control a lot of them, but the world in which we live is amazing. And, as somebody who teaches, we talked about Russian history, right? We think about how terrible it is to be born in a country like Russia, even in the current age. But you step back, step back even to the founding of our country. I've been kind of on a weird American history kick recently, thinking about the flaws of the founders and how we have improved on our country in so many ways, and that this sort of obsession with, oh, things were better in the past is just wrong. And so this kind of, I guess when you call it patriot myth in a way, this notion that, the way things were put together were perfect is just wrong. And we need to appreciate the world in which we live and how much better we have made it as a people and as a country and as, all the things that make our lives better. And I feel like as much as I love history, what it teaches me to think about is how amazing the moment is that we are in now and how we can, we have to keep working on it. But it makes me feel it's a different approach, right? We were a bit talking about this earlier, right? We come to with a certain set of assumptions as, rural white kid in the Midwest about how the world works. And once you start learning about the reality of history, it just reminds you of how much better things are and how much hard work it has taken to get where we are, that this wasn't inevitable. It is the hard work of good-hearted people who have made it in the world that we live today. And we need to be one of those people, right? We need to make it better too, right?
Facts.
So I'm grateful for our moment in history, which is an odd thing to say, I suppose. But
what motivates you?
It's interesting, right? As an entrepreneur, I should say, well, I want to make money. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm doing well. And I'm glad that the company and the business and the spirits are doing real well. But the thing that inspired me was curiosity, right? I always want to learn something new and taking a hobby of mine in the garage. So I would say that I have been inspired by curiosity and wanting to learn something new. I mean, part of staying in the university was, well, I can always get to learn something new. I always get to learn a new topic. I get to go read some new documents. I get to travel to a new place. I'm always learning something new. And starting a business has been an amazing experience for learning all these new things that I had no idea were as fascinating as they are. The second part, I think, in this, so if I say that, I also feel like I want to help. And sometimes I say the spirits industry may not be the most helpful industry, but it's also a place that we've talked a little bit about. It's a place for community. It's a place for learning. It's a place that I can take my success and use it to make my community a better place. So I think these two things together have been it's been a gratifying time for me. And I feel really motivated to just keep working with the great people I'm working with, to help the community, to make great products, to meet great people. I mean, it's been a pretty amazing experience.
What grounds you?
And the grounding conversation, so I'm a lifelong runner. Oddly enough, so I like a jogger, so I'm not fast in any stretch of the imagination, but I started running in college, and just for fun, right? To start to work out excess energy, to work out my own anxieties. And so now I've been a runner for something like 30 plus years at this point. I'm lucky that my knees have held up, but I know that there is nothing better for my mental state to go for a nice early morning run when it's quiet, no music, just myself and the sound of my feet hitting the pavement is the way that it sort of helps me recenter myself. It's a sort of almost a Zen sort of experience for me. I've never been a person who wants music or entertainment or distraction. I just like to go and do my time. And for a lot of years, I don't have a dog right now, but a lot of years I shared that with my dogs. So that me and the dog would go running, every morning or, 3 or 4 times a week. And that was an amazing way to sort of recenter yourself and just clear out your head.
Feel free to come take Bosco to Podcast Dog whenever you want.
He might not keep up with me. I'm kind of...
Well,
I always went with the bigger dogs with the long legs.
Oh.
And they would make it, I don't know how old Bosco is. They would make it about 8 years and then they would get tired.
Oh.
We're too old for that.
That's fair. What does success look like?
Yeah, I think we were talking about that, right? A little bit in the terms of curiosity and learning. I was thinking the other thing that was really important to me in this whole process is independence. Is that part of the reason that I was done teaching at the university is that I like my own autonomy. And I imagined, though sometimes I would have to say that it's not as true being a small business owner, that creating your own business gives you the kind of autonomy that I have craved, right? And so having the business work well in a way that I can do what I want and that I think is right has been really important to me. So that sort of connection and that sort of independence and that sort of direction are things that have been really important to me. So I feel like this first year has been an amazing success for me. I haven't made, well, I think at the end of the year, I will have made zero money, but I have created something that I can be really proud of, that has great potential, that has offered me all sorts of new opportunities that is really important to me. And so I want to grow this business. I want to be successful, but I also want to I continue to try to make an impact on others in all sorts of ways. And I think, I feel like the business has been pretty good for that. I mean, we've created a space that people really enjoy. I've made so many new friends. I am able to help community organizations in ways perhaps that I hadn't been before. And it's just been great. So I feel very good right now. And I think this is kind of, if I could just keep building on what we're doing, I would be very happy.
What irritates you?
All right, here's my pet peeve. As we were talking about earlier, I was saying the thing that annoys me more than anything else is paperwork, right? And it kind of go back to my autonomy theme, is that how much time do you have to spend doing paperwork? And I was thinking about the reason, it's not that bureaucracy and paperwork annoys me, but what I think has happened, and maybe this is an observation for you to comment on too as well, is that there is the problem with bureaucracy is they have to assume the worst. Because if you're going to put together a process, if you're going to set up a safety protocol, you have to assume that there is a bad person that you have to worry about.
Facts.
Right? And so that bureaucracy itself has become an assumption of misbehavior.
Yes.
As opposed to something that can help you. And
it's like
sad.
An electric fence. Right? And I feel like my take on bureaucracy is like, we're going to put up this invisible electric fence that's going to make this so difficult that it'll chase away anyone who's not whatever enough to be able to filter through the bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm. Because I want to say I'm not against bureaucracy, but we'll take safety for an example, right? And we want to have a safe workplace. I want to treat my employees right. I don't want people to be hurt. I don't want to poison people. I don't want to do any of those things. And I think it's great that there are experts who are able to help me, who are in government, who are by and large really good people. And then we're stuck by all this crazy paperwork instead of figuring out how do we make this work together? Because I want us all to be on the same page, to be safe. But all of a sudden, there's a bunch of hoops that we have to jump through that don't really make us safer, but it has become the process as opposed the goal. And so that, in some ways, has been the most annoying part of this, is that I'm always struggling, not with the people, because I have some great interactions with the people who are doing the job. You're often stuck by, but this is the process that we all have to figure out how to negotiate to make sure that, say, this is a safe place, that it's not, that we all agree this is what needs to be done, but there's all these things that have to happen in a, very peculiar and annoying order that always feel like they're really impeding the goal that we actually set out, that a goal that I agree with and that we're all working towards. And so that's why I was thinking of it as a pet peeve, because it's like, I think it's good to have rules and to say we want to do things the right way and we know what works and help me do that. Why do we have to have this structure that makes that difficult?
Facts. What scares you?
Oh, well, I'm being political, I guess. I feel very political as I'm going through this. But I think it takes us back to the conversation about community. And I was thinking about this on an international scale. And I like this term, and I don't know if I just made it up. I'm sure I heard it on, somewhere on social media. I was thinking about weaponized intolerance, right? And this notion that if you don't agree with me, this is a reason, say, to to wreck things, to burn things down, to hate you, to dehumanize you, right? And to say that this has become a mechanism for authoritarian and oppressive and cruelty everywhere in the world, and it's incredibly effective, right? And it has become incredibly powerful in the world in which we live today. And as an optimist, I thought that we did live in a world where people could not get caught up in this, but it's so easy for, I think, humans to fall into this pattern, right? If you are different than me, you are bad, as opposed to how do we work this together? And so it's easy to say the difference is a bad thing that you shouldn't tolerate, as opposed to I can accept difference and we can work together and we can compromise and our community is richer because we're different. And so the example that I've been following is, as a historian, but we could talk about, it's later on, but I was following politics in Europe, Hungary, Poland, Russia, Ukraine. I mean, the things that are going on in the world are often driven by this desire for power and the use of intolerance as a weapon, right? I can get people really worked up to do what I want them to in ways that are just frightening and destructive and dangerous and awful. And so I'm I used to be more optimistic, and maybe that's just getting older, but politics across the world have been pretty bad in the last decade, and I want them to improve again, but I don't really know. I don't know to go with that. It just frightens me.
For me, it just feels like we've gotten away from it being about the people.
I think that's true.
Right.
The individuals.
Yeah, like the people.
Yeah.
The community.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my assessment. What recharges your soul?
And I think, you, Timber, but I think connection. A connection with you, connection with the cool people. I mean, if there's one thing that's brought me more joy in this year of having a small business, it's the amazing people I have met in the process, from the contractors, from the bankers, from the community support people, from the people who come in and are my customers. I have just had a wonderful time building new relationships in this last year from opening the distillery. And so I think that is, at the end of the day, after a day of having the tasting room open, I'm invigorated. I'm not tired, right? I have had such a good day. My bartenders, Todd and Tanya, are like, will you just go and do some work and stop chatting all the time, right? You get behind on these other things that need to get done because all you want to do is hang out and chat with the cool people in the bar. And I'm like, that's such an amazing and invigorating and great moment that this has brought. And I feel like that's in some ways a revelation for me, because I always thought of myself as sort of a bookish, shy person, but it's been amazing. The connections that I have built as a small business person in this town have just blown me away.
Facts. How do you define love?
Yeah, this is I think the hardest question that you ask, both because it's intensely personal, but also because it's so important, right? And I was thinking again, when you come back to that I started with connection, right? Because making a connection with anybody, right? But I think obviously love takes you to a new plane in that connection. I thought about empathy, right? Being able to understand and appreciate and feel what's going on with another person, and seeing that as caring, right? So that you are not just empathetic, but you're engaged and connected to the person and willing to help them as it goes on. And I think that expands, right? You can have the platonic one, right? Which is, you love lots of people who are your friends, and then it expands into a romantic way as well. And all those are really connected to that kind of deep-seated feeling of connection that, makes life powerful. It's made life really good. And I feel like I'm in a better place because of having love and having connection in my life.
I added another question that I think we're going to see how this goes, and we'll see how it flows. What is the most memorable life lesson you've learned from your parents, guardian, mentor?
Well, I was thinking about that question. It's a really good one. And I was thinking that I feel like the thing that I learned, I was thinking the person that I would say that this came from is my grandfather. So my mother's father, he was a farmer. So, right. And I spent summers, from itty bitty to out of graduate school on the farm with my grandparents. When I was 10, I rode around on the tractor and we've, fed the animals and whatever else. And I think the things that I learned from him were, number one is hard work, right? I can't stop working, right? And then, so much of it is driven by what I saw from a man who worked until, the day he died at 85, right? He was always doing something, but also he was compassionate, right? He was the kind of guy who, he went to church every Sunday, but it wasn't just that, right? Somebody called him up and needed help. He was there, right? He was on the school board. He was involved in, the local community bank as helping other people out. He did things, he was just always helping people and always connected to people. And so the two lessons that you got out of that is, right, you can work really hard, but you also want to be connected to your community. And as I think back about just, that's just an observation, right? Just watching those two and my grandmother as well, just being engaged in their society and being busy and being kind. It was amazing. And so I would say that if anything, that experience for me has sort of shaped who I am, is how do you both do something well and continue to do it, and then also make sure that you're treating people well as you go through life. And so I would say as I said, my mother's father was a huge inspiration for me. And in fact, I suppose on a lighter note, so when he died, he was 85. My mom inherited the farm. I was 25 years old. And she's like, do you want to come and be a farmer? And I'm like, oh, I would kind of like to do that. But, the moment's wrong, right?
Yeah.
I've got young family. I've got graduate school. I've got a job. I've got all this other stuff going on. But in many ways, it takes me back to that sort of entrepreneurial thing. And like, there was a moment where I could have just said, heck with all this stuff. I'll just go work with my hands every day for the rest of my life and be part of this little teeny community in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. And that would have been a powerful place for me as well, because I loved him and I loved that life.
I want to ask one more question. Multiple questions that you answered, or multiple answers you had for these questions, you framed around or associated to your new business. And what is the takeaway? Well, you know what? I always like to ask questions about myths. What is the one myth that you think you learned or figured out about being an entrepreneur or starting a business as such? What don't people get or don't understand?
Well, I would say my number one lesson, and I don't know if it's a myth or not, is it's not about your business plan. It's not about even a brilliant idea. It's about the connections and the people that you meet, right? I would say that this would not have been possible if I had not done all of the things and made the connections and had the friends and, had the support that I have had from my community. I think my idea is fine, but it's not unique, right? There are distilleries all over. We're the first one in Oshkosh, but we're not the first one in the world. But I felt like what made it work and what continues to make it work is building relationships. And I don't know if that's not a myth or not, but you watch in the internet world, I invented the greatest piece of software ever, and now I'm a billionaire. But when the truth comes to shove, somebody's got to believe in you. And that comes from making a connection with somebody and building a network of support that makes that possible. And I would say that is probably, I don't know if that's a myth, but I think that's an incredibly important lesson that I learned. It's not the idea, it's the people that you can bring together to make that happen.
Thank you. Okay. we're ready for the next segment. The next segment is the Kosh Hidden Gems. This is your opportunity to share with the Kosh listeners a hidden gem. That hidden gem could be something everybody knows about, but maybe there's particular things they don't know about it, or maybe it's something that you don't think everybody knows about. And it is not limited to the Kosh. It can be anywhere in the Fox Cities region or beyond. What do you have for us, Karl?
Well, I was thinking about a lot of these. Is like I don't go out much, but I do have some favorite places, obviously. So, did you want to read them to me? I'm ready to go.
No. You're telling us these are your favorite. These are your gems, or your gem, or gems.
Oh, our gem. Well, here we go. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the wrong category here. So what I added in this category was I want us to remember how great UW Oshkosh is, and I feel like one of the things that I've talked about throughout my time in Oshkosh and being on the school board and everyone else is that the people who work at UW Oshkosh are amazing, and we should celebrate them more than we ever do. I think everywhere you go on campus, there are amazing people doing great things for kids, for great things for the community, great things for their fields. There is so much great stuff going on there that I sometimes don't think that we appreciate as a community. I mean, you obviously, Timber knows you work there and you said the same thing. I love people, great people, but yes. I even think about it from a academic side point. I mean, like the research, the knowledge, the creation, the solving of problems that is going on right here in our little town, blow me away, right? The cool stuff they're doing with lake water pollution, the amazing stuff that's going on in our engineering program, the poetry, the stories, the art. I mean, there's so much amazing stuff being created at UW Oshkosh that I feel like it is a hidden gem, because sometimes people are like, oh, that's that thing over there. It's those are egghead professors or whatever it is. But the amazing work that goes on there has always blown me away. And even though I'm leaving, right, it's not that I think anything less of that institution. I just think that we need to give them a shout out, to call out how great this institution is, and because we've gotten so much bad press, right, with the cuts and the management issues and other scandals that seem to float around the UW that are kind of made up. The people who work there are doing amazing things, and their jobs are getting worse all the time, but they're still doing amazing work, and it needs to be celebrated.
The university is hands down. I don't think we understand how lucky we are to have it here. Like, how many other cities would kill to have a university in their city, providing resources and tax revenue and a constant stream of new talent and youthful growth, a centralized hub of youthful growth, and even non-traditional growth. I don't think we... as somebody who's lived here long enough now, I often think the community, when you're from the community, and if you didn't go to UWO, it's just that thing in the center of the city. But we don't realize how lucky we are to have just that thing in the middle of the city and how many other things it affects, whether it's business-wide or educational-wide or entrepreneurial-wide, right? The small business, what is the SBDC?
Development Center, yeah.
Yeah, that's out of UW Oshkosh. I mean, just the things that is done off of campus. I don't know what we need to do to get our community to understand the value of that gym, but it feels like we could do more.
No, I totally agree. And so one of my long-term projects is I would love to do a kind of public lecture series. We were calling it Cocktail College or Bourbon and Brains, where we would do, it's almost, I was thinking, almost like a podcasty thing where we would have somebody doing something really cool on campus just come, and we'd have a special cocktail and just invite people out to come out in public and meet them and have them give a little bitty presentation, and just a way to remind people about the amazing stuff that's going on campus that's not on campus. And so it's always been on my radar to try to use this new space as a way to build connection between the university and the cool stuff that's going on there and the community. And if you pass out cheap cocktails, some people might come in and learn something that they might not have wanted to.
I know a podcaster, and he might work for cocktail. No. Let's talk about it, Karl. Let's talk about it. Okay. I love your hidden gem. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I screwed up, and you were actually on point. I skipped an entire segment, but we're going to go back, and we're going to go get that segment.
I know you were confusing me a little bit.
Yeah, I threw you off a little bit, but you know what? Apparently, you are very flexible. You're agile. You were able to jump around, and I appreciate that. We're going to go back, though, because we do not want to miss word association. Word association is where I say a word and you tell us what's on your mind. And there is a tradition here for word association here on the Kosh, and that is we always start off with the word, the unifying word, the word that bonds us all. That word is food. What do you got?
Is it a guilty pleasure? Is Taqueria. I'm just sorry. It's where I go. So their kitchen stays open till 10, and I just love the street tacos, the rolled tacos. I go there and have the same thing like twice a week because I'm just like, I'm done working. We closed. I need tacos. And they are my place right now.
And you will never go wrong mentioning tacos on the Kosh because that is a food favorite. I have a theory. You cannot say the word tacos without smiling.
I think that's true.
And I have not been proven wrong yet. Every time.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it now.
See? Well, and you already know that I've got an affinity for tacos due to the fact that my birthday party, we brought a taco truck in the place.
I love those Diablo tacos. They were awesome.
The Diablo makes a great taco. Gosh, listen, if you don't know, if you see the Diablo taco truck out there anywhere, stop. Stop and get you 3 tacos because them tacos are amazing.
They are.
Yes. I love this because it's of who it is, cocktail or beer.
So I want to give a shout out to the Fifth Ward guys. We're starting a new collaboration right now. They had a little overrun on some beer, and we are going to do a amber ale distilled spirit. And so I spent Monday with Zach, and he was over at my place, and we were emptying out some kegs into the still. And tomorrow I'm going to run it on my big still, and we are going to have some really nice beer-based spirits that we will barrel age, and it will be a really delicious. Well, it's called legally it can't be called a whiskey, but it's basically a beer whiskey, and it's going to be great, and it should be, it'll be available. It'll take probably 6 months or so to age. We're going to put it in a small barrel, but I'm just like so excited that I'm collaborating with those guys. UWO grads, super cool guys. Ian was on your show. I loved his episode.
Facts. Big shout out to Ian.
And just two great guys. They have great people who work there. Awesome place. And so I'm all about the collaborations, man. I'd love it. I love Fifth Ward. I'm doing a Sunken Paddle brandy with the cider. Have you had those guys on? You should get Spencer on here. He is amazing.
Well, I will take Spencer, but I have a relationship with Doug, and so I'm poking at Doug.
Yeah, well, Spencer's a little more outgoing.
Yeah. You know what? We got 2 chairs. I can have them both.
That'd be nice.
I can work that out.
Yeah.
We got microphones.
And then I'm also doing a thing with Fox River. We're working on doing some Blue Bobber themed things that might be coming.
Yes,
so I'm cool. All about the great community of craft producers here in Oshkosh. Again, freaking phenomenal town to be able to sit down with all these folks and do great things together.
I just want to put the plug out there between everyone. The Kosh needs a spirit called the Kosh. That is what I need. I have talked to Ian, and Ian said he's going to consider that now, but a nice, either a beer, but I would prefer, if it's going to represent who the Kosh is, or at least me, a cocktail for the Kosh or something flavored that. I'm going to keep pushing because I've got friends.
We've got to rename that Perfect Pair.
Oh, the Perfect Pair could be. Actually, the perfect blackberry would be the Kosh's drink.
Nice.
Yes. All right. And if
come down and we'll experiment on that sometime.
Done. Kosh listeners, if you want to know, you better ask somebody. Talk to me. All right. Shop local.
So I'm going to give a shout out to Two Blondes, who's doing all my merch right now and making my T-shirts and my sweatshirts. And I want to say that these women know glitter, and
bruh, facts.
And it is so funny, right? They made Tanya this amazing rhinestone apron with our logo on it. We've got these sparkly T-shirts. I mean, they glitter themselves. Their personality, the two of them, are just amazing. And I love those two. And again, you need a T-shirt. They make them custom. They're making stuff for us. They're super great folks. And so I've been trying to do that. That's what I'd like to do. I like to find local stuff, right? I'm doing the collaborations, but they're doing my merch, so I'll give them a shout out too. Love it. And look, that is one of my wife's favorite places. Anytime. If she wants something and she wants it to be glitter and stand out, at Two Blondes is the top of her list. She is quick to go there. That's right. They are fantastic there. I love it. Concert. Yeah, this one is hard for me. I haven't been to a concert since. Well, I should give a shout out to my son. Can I give a shout out to my son? He is a classical violinist, and he has been giving concerts at Beckett's on Monday nights, where he plays. He's actually a great singer songwriter too. He started writing some of his own more kind of folky songs, but he is my local concert artist because he is starting to try to. He's a music major, and he's just trying to find his way in the music biz. And so if you ever see Peter Loewenstein out there playing, drop in, give him say hi. You know, Beckett's always runs a really nice special on Monday nights. When he plays, you get a little off your Sturgeon Spirits cocktail. Thank you guys for having our stuff on the back bar. So yeah, look for Peter. He is my local concert star right now, and amazing musician, and I'm very proud of him. Love it. Karl, you got all the connects, man. I have noticed, as I go to a couple other establishments, like I've seen Sturgeon Spirits behind the bar in almost every place. Yeah, I'm working on it, right? So one of the joys about being a distillery is we're not just a tasting room, right? We can start selling it in other places. I saw your liquor cabinet when I walked in, which is pretty amazing. You got to put that on the Kosh podcast page. I don't want people to judge me. They might look at me and be like, why does he have so... No, he's got a lot. No, but hey, when I find something I like, I actually invest in it. I appreciate it. Streaming. So are you watching Reacher? No. Which is I guess it's on Amazon Prime, and it's based on this kind of, it's totally silly, mindless, like mystery, beat 'em up kind of story. It's about this guy who's a former military criminal investigator who's like 6'5", 280, gigantic, and then, he solves crimes and beats people up. It's awesome. I've been the season 2 just came out. I have to watch the last episode, but they made the show. They must have made the show really different than the movie because Tom Cruise, I think, was Reacher before, wasn't he? He failed. Tom Cruise is a total fail as Reacher. So I've read a couple. Bruh. I've read a couple of the novels right now. I was, in fact, my guilty pleasure over Thanksgiving as I read a Reacher novel, and the guy on the TV show, I can't remember his name now, is perfect. Is exactly what's described in the book. Is this huge kind of brooding, smart guy because he's a ex-cop. And that's what the TV show is. It's exactly like the book was meant to be. Tom Cruise, what is he, like 5'2"? And, he's not the physically intimidating person that this character is. And so the show is great. I love the show. And it's I don't watch a lot of TV these days, but it's been something that I've really enjoyed. So Reacher on Amazon Prime. Entrepreneurship. We made this word just for you. Yeah, I don't know. That was a good one, right? What phrase comes to mind? I was like, it's it's amazing. It's super great. I mean, I am so happy that I did it. I mean, there are so many problems and so many hurdles, but I can't imagine being any happier than I am right now playing at the master distiller and running a place and learning everything that I could possibly learn. And I come back to meeting cool people. I mean, I think this is an amazing opportunity, and I wish that it were easier and that they would make it easier for people, because this is a thing that can be incredibly fulfilling, and I love it.
Last word, diversity.
And what I thought is, I really wanted to say, well, now that the term has slipped my mind, but I want to say, what's the word? I want to say success. I want to say quality. I want to say this makes the world rich, right? We can think about it in whatever terms you want, but it takes me back to that intolerance thing. Is the world is a better place when you appreciate other things, when you appreciate other people, when you appreciate different ways that people look at the world. Diversity is what makes the world great. And all of this sort of fear of it and weaponizing fear of difference is just a terrible, terrible thing. And so I think it just needs something that needs to be, celebrated. And, one of the things that I love to travel, right? And one of the things that I've experienced as I've traveled around the world is that everybody is different and they're great. And it's fabulous, right? And there's no reason to be afraid of any of it. It's just celebrate how people do things differently and how great that makes the world in which we live. And it doesn't matter where you go. But it's also true right here that kind of again, intolerance and fear it just makes your world duller and less good. It just makes it worse. Celebrate the world in which we live and understand and connect with the people out there. I mean, I feel like so much of what's wrong is that trying to use that as a bad thing and as a difference and as a problem instead of a thing that makes the world better.
Okay. I think we're going to get ready to take a short commercial break. But before we take that commercial break, I just want to take a moment again to say that the Kosh is officially sponsored by Sturgeon Spirits, Oshkosh's newest tradition. Love it. All right.
Did you know there are children in the Fox Valley in need of hearing aids, but their parents struggle to provide them because of lack of insurance or high copays? I am Juliette Sturkens, audiologist and board member of Here in the Fox Cities, and proud that this small local nonprofit organization has helped fund hearing aids for some 30 kids. Your donation would help more children hear. Visit hereinthefoxcities.org to learn more and to see their smiles. Every child deserves to hear.
Okay.
Are we back?
Yes, we are back. And I always like to say, people out there, if you're a nonprofit and you would like a commercial on the Kosh, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at askthekosh@gmail.com. We do commercials free for our local nonprofits. And we have a pretty cool audience. Now we are on to the next segment. The next segment is called, and my favorite segment, Story Time. This is the opportunity for our guest to tell us a story. Story can be about absolutely anything of the guest's choosing. Karl, what do you have for us?
Well, I was thinking about this one, and it's a very hard, it's an interesting thing to say. And I thought I wanted to say a little bit about my own personal journey in the last few years, because the one piece that goes through this is, you can tell I am a sort of a supremely confident person in my exterior, and the way that I've, maneuvered through things, I've been really lucky and very successful. But I was thinking about part of the reason that I'm moving into a new career is because I was having some personal struggles, and I had a period in my life where I was really struggling hard, right? And I'm currently divorced, and and it's all my fault, right? And I had to deal with that as I'm moving through the world. And it felt to me that one of the things that I realized is that as I go through this, an important observation, perhaps even more than a story, is that I was in a very dark place in my life. And I found help by finding a counselor, by reaching out and getting some help. And it really helped me deal with the anxieties that I sort of feel. And I alluded to this a little bit before, is that oddly, for who I have sort of am and what I realized about myself, I thought that I didn't like to interact with people, right? I wanted to hide in a book. I wanted to hide in an archive. I wanted to write about something. And a lot of that was driven not by, I think, who I am, but my own fears. And so in the midst of everything that went on here, and starting a business is part of that, is that I said, I need to figure out what I value in life. And I have to hear that anxiety in my head, and I have to get through it. And I found some really great help to make that possible. And so that as I have gone past the few years, I think I have figured out how to understand myself better that I might not have otherwise. And so I guess in some ways my story is that, hey, as somebody who's, I think you would say on the surface, right, I've been very successful. I've, had a pretty good life. Things have worked out very well for me. I was kind of deeply torn in ways that I didn't fully understand, and it blew up on me. And I worked through it thanks to finding great support and great counselors, and I think I've rebuilt my life in a really good way. And what I learned in that is, what do I value? I value connection. I value curiosity. I value compassion. And I discovered these things, and I'm allowing myself to do things that I didn't know before. And it feels to me like that's a really important observation. Now, I spent some time, you read these, you talk about the manosphere and all this kind of macho stuff that runs around in the world. And I feel like opening myself up to my own vulnerabilities has made me a better person and made me a better human being, and helped me really move forward through life. So it's not really a story per se to say, but I could, and I don't want to go into too many details because I'm being a little personal about it, but I want to say that there's a story here, that this isn't like, oh, look at him, he just went out and started a business and things are great. I struggled. I had a very hard time. Part of my transition away from the university is because I needed something new in my life. And I found a solution, but I found it with help, and I found it with connection, and that has made my life better. And I am, meeting people like Timber and meeting people like you are just an amazing experience that have allowed me to understand. And I would honestly say things like, as much as I said to you, my Tanya and Todd say, stop, go do some work and stop chatting with people at the bar. I literally catch myself and say, I'm afraid to go out and talk at the bar, right? I don't want to see people, what something bad might happen. I literally still do that. As much as I love it, I have this little voice that says, don't, that something could go wrong. Don't do that. Be afraid. And I've learned to say, thank you, little voice. I can hear you, but I don't have to do it. I don't have to listen to you. I know it's there, but I don't have to listen to it because I know what I value and I know what's important, even though I have that nagging, picky voice in your head that says you're a failure, that you've done the wrong thing, that this will be a bad idea, whatever. And so much of where I was in the past was listening to that voice and not understanding it and understanding how to manage it. Now I can hear it and not listen to it. And it's made my life better, and it's made me build connections with people and really move me forward in my life. So I just wanted to, I felt like I just wanted to say that, and I as we go forward, and say it's a story of my life that I want people to know, right? It isn't just, oh, you started a new business and off you went. I worked through a lot of issues, and I got the help that I needed, and I feel like that has made my life better and puts me at a place where I am. It is great.
I can't tell you how many people needed to hear that. Just period. We all need to hear that. None of it's easy.
None of it's easy. And the revelation for me was that you can hear it, but you don't have to listen to it, because you can't make it. You can't make that doubt and anxiety go away, but you don't have to be controlled by it.
Right.
And that's huge. But then I could tell you a story about how a monkey stole my glasses. That's much more exciting.
Ooh. And we are not a binary show. So you can tell us that one too. And I'm here for it. Let's go.
Well, one of my favorite things. So I told you I travel a lot. So a long time ago, went to visit some friends who were friend from the university who's in the geology department who had a 1-year Fulbright in Indonesia. And so we went to Indonesia to visit our friends. And it was, we were on the island of Bali, amazing, South Asian island, Hindu. And we went to visit on literally the last day before we were supposed to go home. We went to visit this temple up on the mountain, and the guide says, "Oh, you have to pay extra to get a monkey protector." So there's a person who you're supposed to give a few, whatever, I can't remember the currency, a few Indonesian, dollars to watch out for monkeys. And I'm like, what do I need to watch out for monkeys for?
Bruh.
and so we're walking up the trail to go see this monastery, and a monkey jumped me from behind, grabbed my glasses off my face, hopped over the rail, and sat 10 feet from me and was looking right at me and went, whoops, took my glasses and broke them in half.
No!
And it was just like the most bizarre experience ever. I mean, amazing, right? Here you are in this tropical, beautiful place, and the monkey assaulted me and broke my glasses. And apparently, and that's why, and the monkey guide was like, see, you should have paid for a monkey guide.
Bruh.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Of course he did. Of course he did.
And I'm like, he probably trained the monkey to do that, right? Don't you think? It felt like a scam to me.
Bribe him with some bananas.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you do?
That's right.
Maybe that's the thing. Might not have been his first time of breaking some glasses.
That's right.
He could be trained. That's so bizarre. And gangster. That is very gangster.
He hit me from behind, right? He came from the back, hit my shoulder, took the glasses, and boom, was off.
And with the fact that he snapped them in half is what got me. Wow. Okay, Karl. Now that there is some story time. Love it.
I do too.
Okay. All right. It's that time of the show, Kosh listeners. Every single time. Love it. Every single time. It is time for the topic of the week. Topic of the week is chosen by our guests 99.9% of the time. And this week is no different. So, Karl, what is our topic of the week?
As I don't know if you'd be surprised or not, I put Ukraine on the list because, the war is still going on.
Facts.
And it's horrible and it's traumatic, and it really upsets me. And of course, what's going on right now is that because of all the dysfunction in the Congress, we're not helping out these people who need it desperately. And I want us to be aware, and I want people to be thinking about that because the Ukrainians are fighting for freedom. These are people who believe in democracy. They are people who are trying to keep from being put under a horrible, repressive regime, who are dying every day. And because of the world we live in, it's off the news, and Russia's taking advantage of that. But we got to remember these folks and help them out, and come together and help these folks out. Give them some more aid. Keep their military functioning. Don't let Russia get away with this in the world that we live in, because it's only bad tidings if Russia's able to take part of Ukraine or all of Ukraine, God forbid.
Yeah, it just seems like this could open the door, not just for Russia, but for a whole lot of other actors in the world to think that they could do something similar.
No, absolutely. And, as an area that I've studied, right? I mean, I love the culture. I said very nice things about Russians. I know Ukrainians as well. I speak a little Ukrainian. I've been, following the wars really all since 2014, when the Russia first grabbed the Crimean Peninsula. And I'm just like, it just horrifies me that we can live in a world where you can get away with this. And that takes me back to the intolerance and the weaponized intolerance, because Putin is playing that game with, the hate, as opposed to serving the people or doing the right thing for anyone. He's just using hate to create this kind of conquest mentality. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's awful. Talk about things that upset me in the world.
When this initially was happening and it was in the news, there was a lot of energy around it and a lot of support, it seems, for the Ukrainians initially. But the longer it goes on, we're in such a fast-moving society that other things come to the forefront, right? What don't you think we as Americans understand about the importance of what's going on in Ukraine?
Well, I think that's a great and important question. And I think the number one thing that we have to remember is that it really is about democracy, right? I mean, if you want to think about what we value as a society and things we claim to be as important, this is a group of people who have chosen to be free and are giving their lives every day to do that. But I also say that I'm not hopeless, because the other thing that I think Americans don't know is that we talk a lot about the scary, the Soviet army in World War II and the Red Army and everything else. About 40% of the Red Army in World War II was Ukrainian. And those are some tough people, and they are not going to lay down. And if we give them the help they need, they will win, because they are fighting for their own territory and they are willing to suffer for it. And so we need to step up and do our part. And I'm optimistic in that it wouldn't necessarily even take that long if we were to just full-throated go in there and help these people do what needs to be done. But as up to this point, we haven't really done it. We've been all of our own politics have hamstrung our ability to really protect something that we value strongly.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the politics about not supporting this.
Well, I tend to think I'm a little conspiratorial minded, is that Russia splashes around a lot of money, right? The Russia is good at making sure the right people have cash in hand. I was reading an article just recently about one of the top German journalists who's been writing fairly positive Russian stories in the news. They found out that he had about 2 million marks in his account that came directly through a Russian business that did business in Germany. And so he's just Russia has vast amounts of money that they're spending on influence that I think at least partially explains the campaign that's out there. I mean, clearly there's some just oppositional, like if one side's for it, the other side has to be against it. But there's also
why. There used to be a time that there could be agreement on some things.
And you'd think democracy would be one of them.
Well, and just who are international, and I don't want to call them enemies, but who our international adversaries are.
That's right, and that's Putin. And he's been that way for a long time, and it's sort of like acknowledge it and do something about it. Oh. On the cynical side of myself, I always say, if we fund the Ukrainians, where all the money gets spent, right here in Oshkosh, right? Every JLTV that goes to Ukraine is rebuilt right here in Oshkosh, right? When they talk about giving big amounts of money to Ukraine, what they're giving is American manufactured products to Ukraine. So every U.S. dollar they get spent there is actually spent in a factory here and then shipped over there.
Right.
So this is, it's also like a good domestic investment program. It helps out American industry. So it's even self-interested to help Ukraine.
Jobs.
Well, I guess we don't need too many right now. The economy's booming. But we need better paying jobs.
We always need jobs.
We do.
Yeah, there's never a point, but you are right. You wouldn't think that we were booming. You would think things are horrible.
Well, that's Can we chalk that up to the Russian influence campaign too? Putin paying for that campaign.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask, what else? What do we? And yes, I see exactly where you're coming from. And the fact that because I do think, like, my observation of it is, I don't think they thought they were going to fight this hard for this long and have the success that they have. And when I say they, I'm talking about Russia. Maybe not Russia, maybe Putin. And do you think that assessment is fair? And you really do believe that there is an opportunity for them to come out on the better side of this? And when I say that, I'm referring to Ukraine.
So I would say the answer to both your questions, I'm a little surprised, right? I guess I was never surprised that the Ukrainians fought back. That was always number one on my radar. It's like, they will not take this. I'm a little surprised that Russia hasn't sort of had more trouble than it's had, and so they are able to kind of keep sending troops and keep up the fighting. I'm a little surprised how well the Russians have been able to do that without political resistance in any way. But I also believe that the Ukrainians are not going to give up, and so even if we don't help them, they're not going to lose, right? But if we do help them, they have the possibility of winning, because these are people who know how to fight, are stubborn, believe in their right to their own country, believe in, and are willing to sacrifice to win. And in the end, I don't think the Russian soldiers, Putin's willing to sacrifice the Russian soldiers, but the Russian soldiers, are half-hearted and, and the Russian people would be perfectly happy for this war to be over tomorrow. And there's not any groundswell of popularity for Putin. In fact, he spends all his time arresting dissenters and threatening people and causing all sorts of chaos. But the country is held together better than I think I would have hoped. I would hope there had been a stronger civil society that would bring it to, force him to end the war. But that hope has been sort of dashed. And I'm not sure what would change it except his own death or removal.
What are the things you think we can do to help support Ukraine?
Well, I think in the end, actually, it strikes me that when I still follow the war on a daily basis, and there's still very large scale military conflict. Really, what's number one is, first of all, those defensive systems, right? So the Russians still are kind of, I think you'd say cruelly, but also they just attack civilian areas all the time. I think perhaps that they can demoralize the Ukrainian civilian population, and so they're hitting cities and hospitals and apartment buildings on a pretty regular basis. So they need a lot of defensive help, like Patriot missiles and all the other systems that we have that are really good for this. And then it's, whatever support we can come up with. After that, I don't really know. I'm not a military expert in anything. I think that the moral support is hugely important, but also just aid of all sorts, and let the Ukrainians run their war, because they're better at it right now than we are. I would guess, because they've been doing it now for a long time. So
that makes sense. All right. Any last words you want to say about Ukraine?
Well, I think all I would say is that I think what I've said before is it's an amazing place. These are amazing people. They are fighting for something they deeply believe in, something that we believe in too. And the partisanship here that keeps us from supporting something so important is disheartening to me. And I think we've talked about. I've been pretty serious through this thing about my disillusionment with politics, but this is really a big one. I didn't think that we would end up where we are now with zero funding for something that's so important.
Agreed. I would just like to put in, their president is amazing. The way he goes about it, he's with his people. It feels like, I don't know this for fact, but it feels like he's almost on the front line with them. Like he's there and he doesn't run from it. And he's not distant from them. And I think he's probably one of the best representations of national leadership that I've seen in recent times. He's admirable.
He's one cool dude. He is. Yeah. He is just amazing.
Every time I see an interview with him and how he, not just his messaging, how he carries himself, how he moves, is just very, very powerful. Very powerful.
They can't, Ukraine has had a lot of trouble with presidents over the years, but this guy, Zelensky, is just one amazing person. And, Ukraine is fortunate to have him. And even he can't, rally the support in the U.S. that he really deserves and the people deserve there. So that's a little depressing story, but I wanted to mention it just because it's still going on. And I think in so many ways it's disappeared from American media in ways that is unfortunate, but
Well, it's hard when another war starts,
I know,
and we're in that one too.
Right, the Gaza Strip stuff, and then now there's a thing going on in Yemen with the Houthis and the shipping. I mean, the world is not in a good place right now. And we're all afraid that something worse will come up in it. So you should stop by the distillery and have a nice cocktail to relax.
Facts. I couldn't have turned that around any better.
And I promise that we'll only talk about distilling if that's where you want to go. And that's a really fun conversation.
I promise you that it doesn't matter what you talk about when you have a yummy Sturgeon Spirits craft cocktail made by Todd or by... Well, Todd. I'm going to go with Todd.
That's right.
That is fantastic. Okay. It is that time where we start winding down the episode. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kosh listeners. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for caring about another individual in our community doing amazing things. I love these conversations, and I learn something every time. And what I hope the Kosh does is it shares this learning with you. As you know, the Kosh is a work in progress. So please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and let us know, A, how we can improve, B, if you would like to be a guest, or C, if you would like to recommend a guest. And how do you do that? You reach us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. I personally answer all emails, so you will get an answer of some sort. I can't promise it is always coherent.
Especially not after the distillery.
Hey, that happens often. We're not going to talk about church. No. And Kosh listeners, you also know I've got two things that I need to ask from you to help the Kosh get in front of more ears and let more of our community members learn about it. And that is while you are listening to it, take a moment and hit the subscribe button. We need more people to do that. And then the other thing is take a moment and fill out a review. What this does is this increases our analytics, and our analytics is what puts us in front of more people so more people can learn about the Kosh. We think we have something special, and I don't know. This is pretty community. I like to think we're something pretty special for our community. So, all right, at this time, it is time for shout outs. So, Karl, what do you got for shout out time?
Oh, I can't remember what I put on my sheet. What was I going to shout out here?
Well, and I got some people from your establishment that you're going to shout out.
Oh, that's right. I really should shout out. You know, one of the amazing things, as I mentioned, the connection, I've got such a great staff. I've got Todd, who's been here since the beginning. I've got Tanya, but then I've got so many great people who are helping me. I've got Megan and Erica and Olivia, and I've got Susan Stearns, who's been amazing, who's given me all sorts of great things. Just an amazing group of people where I'm working with it at the distillery, and the great people that I've met with over the years. So I think all those folks that I would probably want to start with and say, these are amazing people. I'm so appreciative that I got to know them and that I've gotten to meet with them. Let me give a shout out to Beth, my girlfriend at the moment. So she's been great and supportive and has been super helpful doing graphic design and making everything go well in this last year. So, thanks to her. And I should say hi to my kids, though they're my son Peter, you can always hear him play. My daughter Kieran, she's amazing, and a historian as well.
I didn't know that.
She majored in history.
Okay.
Just a great group of people around me and a great community. So,
all right. Nice. I definitely wanted to send a shout out to Todd and Tanya because they be making those yummy craft cocktails. There's a theme running through this episode, and we love it. All right, so my shout outs are, I want to send a shout out to the snowplow drivers. That is a no joke job. That is hard. They work crazy hours because they got to work whenever it snows, and God knows when that happens. So I just want to, as somebody who works for a city and actually gets to see another side of it, it takes a lot more than we know, and it's more complex than we know. That having those people show up for us as we need them. We're just used to we need something to get plowed, and then a couple hours it's plowed. It's there's a lot more that goes into that, scheduling wide and who can be on the road and how long they can be on the road. There's just things and things we need to be aware of. So big shout out to our snowplow drivers, particularly at these times. Big shout out to my MLK celebration committee for the city of Appleton. MLK celebration happening this coming up Monday, but by the time you hear this, it will be long past. Big shout out to Clarence Crane. I appreciate meeting you. That was a fire conversation. Shout out to Leah Shapiro of Fleet Feet Fox Valley. Sometimes you just meet people and you connect. And I've met her before online, but got to meet her in person in a meeting. And wow, just wow. And if you are a runner out there and you would like to do a running event, do not hesitate thinking about reaching out to Fleet Feet of the Fox Valley. That's what they do. I want to send a special shout out to all the Deltas out there because it is their Founders Day today. So all of those members in my life and all across the world from Delta Sigma Theta, big shout out. Founders Day is huge. And then special shout out to Andy and and of course, I'd like to end with my wife because we are a tag team snow plowing, shoveling team. And we've been doing this for years. She is always the first out there and make sure that the things happen. And I don't know if every couple does it like we do, but we both go out there, we tackle it together, and that's an amazing thing. So we are now at the last thing that we got to do, Karl, and that is this. You got 3 choices. So option A, you can give us parting words of wisdom. Option B, you can tell us what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self. Or option C, all of the above. You can do both. All right. Well, I mean, you're a professor, so you should have saw that coming.
You do a really nice job preparing us, and then I didn't turn the page over. But I want to give the parting words of wisdom but I want to give kudos to you, Timber, because I think what we're doing together, what I want to do at Sturgeon Spirits is about building community. We've been talking about this, if you've been following this notion of a third space where people can gather and talk and just be together. That's what a place that I wanted to create. I think we're doing that. Here we are together doing the same thing, building community, listening to one another. These are the things that make life worth living, that make your life better, is getting out and making these connections that make life great. And I just appreciate so much what Timber has done for us here in Oshkosh. I feel like this is something I aspire to do in my own life. And so I feels like it's not even words of wisdom. It's just like, this man knows what he's talking about. And let me finish, because we talked about this earlier. Timber said to me, I think a month ago or more now, that bars and churches serve the same role and bars do it better. And I think that that's the third space we've all been talking about, the place like Sturgeon Spirits that I want to create, that Timber has come to join us in many, many times, that these are the kind of communities that America needs, and that we can get past so many other places if we can get together and listen and talk and build that connection. And I think it's amazing. And I think Timber's amazing, and this has been a great conversation today. So thank you, Timber.
Thank you, Karl. Gotta say, Kosh listeners, I promised you at the very beginning this was going to be a fire episode, and I don't think we disappointed. The Kosh